Highly empathic people tend to stay in relationships far beyond the time they should. This is because the nature of the way you enter a relationship and you're thinking about putting the other person's feelings as a priority, as well as thinking about how leaving a situation, a relationship, ending a friendship, a partnership, how it will affect other people. So the deprioritization of the self is an earmark sign of high empathy. It's also an earmark sign of being asleep and unawakened. You see, as you wake, okay, and you have clearer eyes looking at the world, when people talk about the boundaries, what we're really talking about is understanding the inner workings of things as it relates to interpersonal rapports and relationships, and prioritizing yourself because nobody else is going to do that. So it's not that you're selfish, it's that you are caring for what it is that you need because you inherently understand that nobody, not even people who love you and care about you, respect you, nobody's going to put what's moving you, what God put inside of you, what is within you, more than you. Prioritizing your needs, your wants, but even more so, your calling is something that only you can do. So let me give you a couple of examples about that, right? You need a job, you want a job, you get a job. You take the job, and you know that the role that you're in is limiting and is not utilizing your skills and abilities to the level that it can and that you want to exercise. So at the time of accepting the role, right, the unawakened person will just continue to languish in the job, right? Year after year, until whatever happens, some politics within the work and you get canned, or you just, for whatever reason, need to leave, or retirement hits, okay? The awakened person does so with a sober mind, right? And looks at an opportunity as a time to do something, to, survive, if you will, build relationships, but at the same time is in tandem working on what comes next consciously, right? Because you're not going to be there forever. You're not going to be there for a very long period of time unless somehow miraculously it materializes into the thing that you're called to do. Even if you don't even know what your calling is, you know that anything that is not maximizing your ability has to be short term, because it is pulling your focus and your energy, right, into a place that is misaligned with your direction. Now, the same is true for relationships. Oftentimes, the highly empathic person will get into friendships, or even worse, romantic relationships, and stay there indefinitely, right? They will be in a friendship that's not producing fruit, that's not benefiting their calling, their life is not really pouring into you, right? You're pouring into the thing, but it's not pouring into you. And we're not talking about, gifts or things like that. We're talking about actual emotional and psychological investment. Those are the things that fertilize your garden, your spirit, right? True deep connection. If you're not getting growth, and the things that move you, joy, humor, if there's not a commonality of interests, but moreover, you are receiving just as much as you're giving. If there's a lack of reciprocity, that is a sign that that relationship is not beneficial to you, right? It's not a matter of judging anyone or putting anyone down or seeing anyone as less than and you're better than. Has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with alignment, right? And when you are aligned, the people in your life will organically give and put in effort to you just as you do with them, right? You won't deal with stonewalling or blame shifting or any of the selfish traits that are commonly associated with, toxic individuals and worse over, narcissistic psychopaths, right? So you didn't know about narcissism before. You didn't know about psychopathy before. You didn't understand that there are individuals that walk among us that look like they're human, but they're not. So you allowed yourself to be in rapports that you had no business being in. This goes for all relationship types, including familial relationships. Okay? When we talk about boundaries, when you hear a lot of chosen ones talking about boundaries, evolved individuals talking about getting firm on those boundaries, what they're really speaking to is understanding that life is precious and, it's your life on earth has, a limited amount of time and energy, and allocating that spend is up to you, right? Each individual. Okay. So even when it comes to just texting someone, forget about actually spending time in person on the phone, and all that, but just even thought energy, right? There's a value attached to that. Okay. A very, an immeasurable value that is attached to that. And especially when you're on the healing journey, right? All of that energy has to go inward, right? Because you've got to get right with how you're looking at all of those things. It's very important. It's one of the most important aspects. People talk about, and I posted this on one of these posts. People talk a lot about how do I meet other empathic people? And that will come. I promise you, it will come. Okay. But there's a key of entry. It's not just because you recognize that, you're a highly empathic person or a chosen one or a starseed. That means that you are now entitled to others. It doesn't work that way, right? Like, you may be aware that you are, that you're waking up, but part of that energy exchange is remember, give and take. So your evolution is part of that. You have to do work on yourself, right? You have to do work on yourself lest you fall into another trap like you have in the past of languishing too long in the wrong relationships and rapports. As you begin to heal, you will attract, as I said many times, you will attract other highly empathic people. It will happen organically, okay? Doesn't matter where in the world you are, what language you speak, it will happen, right? Now, there are things that you can do to conscientiously, interact with other highly empathic individuals, but even that will come to you in due time. The number one thing you've got to focus on is that inner work within yourself. Okay? That's important, because prior to you waking up, so all this time that you were asleep, right? No matter how many years it's been, that was your training ground. You know, you don't want to spend too much time negatively focusing on it. You've been through a bunch of narcissistic abuse. You've dealt with a lot of unsavory treatment, behavior, difficulties, and things like that in life. You're rising above it now, and you will continue to do so. But the most important thing for you to do is go internally. No longer are you going to waste time with people, places, or things that not only don't value your presence and energy, right? But where your energy is not reciprocated. That's over. Do your shadow work.